it's Mr. Auerbach again, and here I am to take you on a little guided tour through the photosynthesis presentation and some of the questions that were asked in that. And so, here we see, photosynthesis is all about the plants, and we're going to find out what about plants, how do they obtain the matter and energy that they need, do plants eat food? I think we know they don't eat food. Do they respire? Do plants do cellular respiration? And what role does soil play? All of these fascinating things and more will be addressed right now. Okay, so unpacking processes in plants. We already have a lot of questions about plants. I'm sure that you do. I know that I do. So how do they get their matter and energy? And with that, we have to look at a phenomenon much like with The Biggest Loser, where we had to wonder how that person who lost 275 pounds, what happened to all the matter that was in his body when he actually lost that weight. And this is a very similar question. We're looking at an oak tree, specifically the valley oak tree, as you can see here. And there's a little bit of specifics about it, as you already saw in the presentation probably. But the real question is, when they grow, they weigh as much as 8,000 pounds, and they start out as an acorn. The question is, where do those tons of material come from? Actual matter that makes up the tree, where does it come from? Does it suck it up out of the soil? I don't know. Let's find out. Okay, so here's something that I want to make sure everybody knows. There's a video here, and it's basically about how you put the answers into the presentation rather than there being two different documents, the presentation document that you're looking at and some other Google answer sheet in another location. I've decided to combine them so that you don't have to leave one, go to the other. Just hit escape like I just have, and when you see it in this view, then you can click on the box and you can type your answers. Yeah, that is what I am talking about, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what I'm going to do when I grade these, is just go from box to box and look at your answers right in this presentation. Don't worry, no one will see your answers. It's a copy for each of you, so you're not typing into a central doc where everybody is going to judge you for your answers. Okay, so we're looking here at the first slide of the what is photosynthesis section, and it's really what it's telling you, and what it ends up asking you is what's the chemical reaction for photosynthesis. And you really want to use this, or your chapter readings, excuse me, as a guide, because it's like a chemical reaction here. They're showing a leaf. Instead of just an arrow in the middle, they're kind of showing a leaf and other arrows. But remember, when you have a chemical reaction, what's on the left of the arrow are the reactants, and what's on the right of the arrow are the products. And the arrow represents the chemical process. And in this case, we have light energy coming in, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but all this is really asking is the products and the reactants, and I think you can see that from what we have here. And just in case you were not sure, here's another look at that might give you a better idea of what the reactants and products are. Okay, so want to talk about energy a little bit, and what we're talking about here for this one is which is photosynthesis on the top or on the bottom. So with that in mind, let's have a look. You've got on the top, you have a situation where you have high energy reactants, right? Remember, this is your amount of energy, that potential energy that you have to give. And then after the reaction, that energy comes out and you have low energy products. In this other one, you have energy going into the reactants and turning them into high energy products, from low energy reactants to high energy products. So which one of those is it? Well, let's have a look at this one. in this one, we have a high energy molecule that goes into it. We have energy that comes out and leaves us a low energy product. The energy comes out in the form of ATP. And our products, carbon dioxide and water, are low energy, as opposed to on this side, you have a different form of energy. Maybe this is a good hint for you. That's putting energy in so that we can go from low energy reactants to high energy products. Photosynthesis is that reaction. That's an endothermic reaction, meaning energy goes into the reaction, as opposed to cellular respiration, which is exothermic and energy comes out. Okay, let's move on. You can see what they're saying there about the potential energy of the molecules involved. We have a balanced chemical reaction, which the sixes are really just to tell you how many actual molecules have to go in to make this reaction happen one time. And if you look, like the 6 carbons in 6 carbon dioxide molecules are the same as the 6 carbons that are over here. This is just an accurate representation so that there's the same number of atoms on both sides. Okay, as to where these happen, hopefully people got this pretty well. The photosynthesis happens in the chloroplasts and respiration happens in the mitochondria. And then carbon dioxide goes in for photosynthesis, it comes out for cellular respiration. Animals do cellular respiration only, we know that, and only plants do photosynthesis, but do plants do cellular respiration? In order to figure that out, we're actually going to look at an experiment in just a second, but this does ask you to make a prediction as to whether you think plants do cellular respiration also. Are they taking those sugar molecules and burning them to release energy in the form of ATP for themselves? It's time for an experiment. So in this experiment, we use a substance called BTB. And BTB has this property where if you add carbon dioxide to it, it turns like a light yellow color, as opposed to being blue if there's no carbon dioxide in it. And so, if there's carbon dioxide in the water, you can tell because the color gets lighter. So, what we do is we add a plant to it. We're going to take half of the test tubes of BTB and add the water plant to them and put it in the dark. The other half, we'll add the plant to them and we'll put them in the light. And so, what we're curious to see is, will both of them stay blue? Will both of them turn yellow, or maybe will one turn yellow and one stay blue? Let's stop and think about it for a second. What might happen? Well, carbon dioxide is the product of cellular respiration. So if something's doing respiration, we're going to see that the water will turn yellow in the tube if it's just doing respiration. Now, photosynthesis has carbon dioxide as a reactant, so it goes into the reaction. So maybe if plants are doing photosynthesis, they're taking carbon dioxide out of the water, even if when they do respiration, they're putting it in. Let's look at the results. So here they are. The plant that was just in the light, the water stayed blue. And the plant that was put in the dark, that didn't do photosynthesis, the water turns yellow. Now, you can pause or whatever you want to stop and think about that for a second, but the thing is, why is that? We can sort of understand that in the dark, maybe, it's producing carbon dioxide out of cellular respiration, but it isn't absorbing carbon dioxide to do photosynthesis. And so, unlike the plant in the light, which might be doing cellular respiration, but it's also absorbing carbon dioxide from photosynthesis. So, again, it really wants you to reflect on which of those, it really wants you to reflect on how that works and what each of these test tubes tells us about cellular respiration and photosynthesis, and whether plants do the cellular respiration. Okay, so I think we can see from the evidence that plants do cellular respiration. They are producing carbon dioxide, even if they absorb it sometimes for photosynthesis. So they do have to use those sugars just like animals do in order to make the energy that they need to stay alive. So the last part of this is some detail about photosynthesis reactions, and I'm going to leave it to you to read through this. If you have any questions from reading this next screen and section 4.2 in your textbook, by all means let me know. But I would like to move into this experiment really quickly. John von Helmont did one of the most interesting experiments that's been done in biology. He took a baby willow tree and 200 pounds of dirt, and he put them in a pot. And then 5 years later, he dried out all the dirt again and weighed it. And of course, the plant weighed a heck of a lot more, 164 pounds more. 3,400% bigger, but the soil hadn't lost any weight. 0.00063% decrease in weight. That's like me losing, I don't even know, like an ounce or two, something like that. And so what that was showing is that 5 years later, this thing had taken, where had all that matter come from, I guess is the question. So what you want to do is think about, well, if all of that matter had to come from somewhere, so where did it come from? And thinking about what we know about photosynthesis, maybe you could try to draw some conclusions about that. And what we have here is a question that really gets down to that. So what we started with talking about was the acorn. Acorn grows into an oak tree that weighs thousands of pounds. How come? How much? What? How? How does it happen? And so where does all the matter for making that tree come from? If it doesn't come from the soil, where does it come from? And then here's a culminating question that goes in the opposite direction about Kolipalu, who lost 225 pounds in The Biggest Loser. Where did that matter go? So what did the actual matter, all that extra mass that this gentleman had before he lost 225 pounds, where did all that matter go? Okay, so that is the question. And then the last thing I want you to do is I want you to escape out and do this little exercise where you move the text boxes around to the right place and wherever they might want to go. So one of these processes takes place in the mitochondria, one takes place in the chloroplast. Which one is it? So I want you to try to play around with all these and see if you can get all these into the right boxes. And if you have a hard time with that, let me know. Okay, folks, that's all I have for this, aside from, I guess, one more slide, which is just kind of a summary of what we've learned through this, and that is that plants take in low energy molecules and they turn them into high energy molecules like glucose. Plants do photosynthesis and respiration, but they definitely do more photosynthesis than they do respiration, so they always are taking up that extra CO2. And the other thing we learned from the von Helmont experiment is that plants use that photosynthesis matter that they create to build other biomass aside from just the sugars that we use from energy. They put it together into a lot of other parts of themselves. All right, folks, well, that's definitely enough about photosynthesis. Thank you so much for signing on here and following along to try to increase your understanding of photosynthesis. Thanks a lot. Stay in touch and be good.